Hello, this is Tracy Ariel, and I'm here to talk about 4 steps to profile your business. You are an active entrepreneur and you are looking to write a 1,200 word story or so about your business so that you can divide it up and use it in all your social media. If you've been watching my videos so far, you have a whole bunch of anecdotes about how your company makes the world better, about what inspires your employees, and about why your clients are amazing. So how do you put them together in a story that makes sense? In order to do this very quickly, because I have to write a lot of things in a week, I divide every project that I have into 4 steps. First, I decide on the story. Then I pick the structure that goes best with that story. Then I perfect it by using style guidelines. And then I present it better by using the concept of sound as it applies to pictures. So first of all, what's your story? Now, to give you an example of this, let me talk about the farmers market project that I work with the Urban Abundance Solidarity Co-op. Every week we do a market, and I present that market in terms of a marketing point of view as a news story. What's happening? What's different this week compared to last week? Who's going to be there? What kinds of things? What time does it take place? And where is it? And I remind people that it exists. This is the news story. So I think of it as a news story. Every week there's a bunch of people who are coming to help Verdunners eat local. So that's one of 5 story types. Let me just outline all of the first story types for you. The first one is a day in the life. Now, a day in the life, you can use this story type if you have somebody who has a whole lot of little anecdotes, but they all combine into what could be a sort of an imaginary day. Because obviously you're going to put the best stories into one day. But so, for example, one of the companies that I profiled was the chain Ultramar, and their whole way, they wanted it to be a one-stop shop. So they talked about the person who comes in and, a housewife who comes in to get things to cook for dinner, the school children who come in to pick up their lunch, the trucker rigs who are picking up materials from all of the local companies. They wanted to talk about themselves as a one-stop shop. And so in order to present that, I talk about a day in a life and all the different kinds of people who visit that particular store. In my own journey is another story type, and this is the journey of somebody who has changed. You have to have some sort of major change, and I use this particular story in the Comfort Wrapped in Luxury story, which was the story about the boutique in Vancouver. And the journey in that case was how they took a heritage building and turned it into a modern, luxurious experience for people. This was a journey story. How did it change? How did this particular place keep growing so that the care and the luxury that they presented was obvious? You can also just do a biography or a memoir, and the difference between a biography and a memoir is a biography covers an entire life. It can be an autobiography or it can be a biography, but it covers everything. A memoir is a particular time or period of time in a life, and so that's the difference between these two, but either one can be very captivating story. And the example that I have here is the Ashley Vance's version of Elon Musk. This is a biography because it talks about everything that Elon Musk has done over his lifetime so far. Even though Elon Musk is going to be alive hopefully for a lot longer, this biography covers everything that he's done and who he is as a person, and not just one period of time. News event, I already talked about that when it came to the farmers market, but another one maybe more obvious is how different companies are dealing with the coronavirus and how they're changing and growing and presenting themselves, pivoting to create a new company that they're presenting as a news event. We are new. A detective story. This particular story that I did was on a researcher from the University of Montreal who spent her entire life trying to prove that ADHD is genetic, and she is on a detective story, and I featured her on a particular moment in that particular detective story, but she's going to be searching for that for years. And So those are a day in a life, my own journey, biography, news event, and detective story. Those are the 5 story types. What type of story does your business fit? Once you get that, then you can decide on the structure. How are you going to tell that story? Think about now just pick one. It doesn't even matter if it's the right one. Just pick one now so that you can think about your story as we go through the rest of this webinar. So the next step in profiling your business, once you have what the basic story is, and you've got a rough outline of what you think it is, now you decide on the structure. There are lots and lots of structures, but there are 3 that work really, really well for business profiles. The first one is narrative. That is just the order that it actually happened. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, then that happened. It goes exactly in the order that it happened. Then there's traditional news story. This is who, what, when, where, why, starts at the beginning. So the most important fact happens first, and then you go through all of the other facts. Then there's nut graph style. Nut graph style means that you start off with an anecdote, bringing your reader into the story, and then you present the point of the story, what would have been the beginning at the traditional news style, and then you go on and you describe the story in a narrative fashion. So in order to define these, basically show you how these 3 works, let me show you it in a very nursery rhyme that we all know. So Jack and Jill climbed up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. This is the traditional fairy tale, nursery rhyme that we all know, and it's told in narrative fashion. First, they climbed up the hill. Because they wanted to fetch a pail of water, he fell down and she came tumbling after, completely in the order that it happened. If you took this same story and you did it in traditional news style, you can actually cut a word. Jack fell down and broke his crown. Jill came tumbling after. They were climbing up the hill to fetch a pail of water. It's only 24 words instead of 25. The third one, the nut graph style, is rain, fog, and cold permeated the atmosphere the day Jack and Jill climbed up the hill like some sort of premonition. Sure enough, Jack fell down and broke his crown. Jill came tumbling after. No word on what happened to the pail of water they went to fetch. You can tell that this is it gives a mood. There's much more stylistic about it. You can read a lot more into the personality of the writer, not just what actually happened. And in this particular case, I used the news story, the detective story as a way, so the premonition is actually part of the story, and it sort of hints on something beyond just an everyday accident. So now you've got your story, you've put it into the structure, you've worked on it until it has a structure that you're really happy. Then what do? Then you go through it word by word using typical style guides. So one that everybody really knows is the Chicago Manual of Style. There's also a Canadian style book, which if you're Canadian is really, really helpful. Then there is the Canadian Press style book, which is if you're into journalistic short narratives, then this is a really useful one. And then of course there's the old-fashioned one that I recommend everybody gets once they really get into writing, and that's The Elements of Style by William Strunk and E.B. Wright. This is a funny, entertaining book that's like 86 pages. It's really, really short, and it covers a lot of the really detailed points in writing English. But I'm not going to make you buy any of those style guides. I'm going to give you the 5 tips that are the most important. The first one is use simple words to describe complex ideas. If you can say something in a more difficult way or an easier way, pick the easier way. Then you're going to eliminate all the qualifiers. These are the rather, slightly, very, things that don't mean anything, but that just, they qualify what you're saying. You can make it a lot stronger if you take the qualifier out. Redundancy. These are things like the reason is, due to the fact that, at this point in time, anything that says the same thing twice. Meaningless adjectives. Distinctive, interesting, special. Some people think nice is under there. I actually think that nice is a real word, but anything that's a meaningless adjective, take it out. Use active, precise, dynamic verbs and avoid static ones. Like take out all the appears, take out the becomes, take out seem, take out sound, take out show, take out remain, take out would. The only time you would keep sound in there is if you're describing an actual sound. If you're saying it sounds like or something like that, eliminate it. Ensure that every word conveys meaning. Avoid all 8 forms of to be. These include is, are, was, were, been, being, be, and am. If you just go through after you finish a story and you just do a search on each one of these individually, you will be amazed at how many there are. So now you've got a great story. You're really happy with it. You've made it so that it reads to a professional. It reads well to anybody who might read it. Now you're going to be focusing on mood and sound. I use sound. A lot of people say show, don't tell, and that's really, really important. You want to express. Actually, it's funny, in a webinar like this where I'm actually telling you, showing you is much easier. When I did the Jack and Jill episode, I was showing you what the 3 structures were rather than just telling you. But I'm talking about presenting, and I want you to think about your story now as if a musician was thinking about a sound. I want you to think about the rhythm of the story or the beat that someone's reading it at. I want you, the beat that it has, like what, Alligator Pie is a perfect example. All of the Dr. Seuss books are perfect examples of how beat can change the way a story is told. Cadence, this is the speed at which someone reads something, and the tone or the mood. So in order to show you, I'm going to show you this particular, this is an original version from the Coca-Cola website. On May 8th, 1886, Dr. John Pemberton served the world's first Coca-Cola at Jacobs Pharmacy in Atlanta, Georgia. From that one iconic drink, we've evolved into a total beverage company. Now, if we want to change, if you read the beat of the story, you heard how I read it. Now look at the CEO Pepsi-Cola version. In 1965, Donald Kendall, the CEO of Pepsi-Cola, and Herman Lay, the CEO of Frito-Lay, recognized what they called a marriage made in heaven, a single company delivering perfectly salty snacks served alongside the best cola on Earth. Their vision led to what quickly became one of the world's leading food and beverage companies, PepsiCo. The beat of the story in both of these is almost the same. They're both trying to show tradition, long. They want you to take your time and read the details. Next, we're going to talk about cadence. Cadence is how fast we read. When we take the same thing, you can show that we're reading it pretty slowly. Let's speed it up a bit. The day, May 8th, 1886, Dr. John Pemberton served the world's first Coca-Cola. He worked at Jacobs Pharmacy in Atlanta, Georgia. That first iconic drink turned into a total beverage company. If you'll notice, by making them short sentences, you can quicken the pace without actually stumbling over the words. That's how you can, in a good story, you'll have some sections where they're very short, some sections where they're very long, and you want to make sure that you, as the author, are determining where you want these things to happen, because the emotions for longer, people are slowing down, they're reading carefully, they're really focusing on details if they're long sentences and with lots of detail in them. If they're short, they're rushing by, they're getting they're quicker, and they're more they're less connected to the text. So this is an example. I made it even longer. On May 8th, 1886, in a small town in Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Pemberton created the world's first Coca-Cola while working at Jacobs Pharmacy. He created a tasty sweet drink that has since evolved into a total beverage company. That's even slower than their original one. So then we're going to talk about tone. This is the mood of your story. Is it descriptive? Is it questioning? Is it fact-based? Is it opinionated? Is it casual? Humor? Basically, you want to soften or intensify sections of your story so that the reader gets surprised. You don't want the same tone all the way through. It just gets boring. You want to actually try and speed things up, mix things up a bit. So, one of the things that I do for tone is just put more space in. By dividing this long section into 2 spaces, you immediately change the mood of it. It's you're no longer reading it as slowly. You're also no longer as It's no longer feeling as traditional or as long. So that's it. That's story, structure, style, sound. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Okay.